$70 is a lot of money to spend on a game. However, if we compare that to what games used to cost, it's actually cheaper. While you might think old games were cheap because they were a fraction of the size of current releases, yeah, after adjusting for inflation, these bad boys would have run you double of what we pay for most games now. It's actually kind of funny seeing all the people on Reddit remembering how much they spent on games. I mean, to think that these people were willing to pay the same price for Mario Bros as they would for any of these modern games. Of course, back then, gaming was a commodity. You were the cool kid on the block if you had the newest console and games. While many of these older games sold for an incredibly high price, the more the industry grew, the more affordable options people had. Handheld consoles like the Game Boy Advance and the DS started to gain huge popularity alongside the growth of Nintendo's main franchises. Around this generation is where I can remember some of the best deals in places like GameStop. Any given day you could walk in and see buy one get one free, or huge sales on some of the best games at the time. I mean, I even have a pre-owned copy of The Thousand Year Door, which was bought for $17.99. For the most part though, new games were still between $40 and $60. The difference between then and the 1990s was that the value of money decreased, basically meaning $60 in 2010 was actually a lot cheaper than in 1995. What we're seeing at the $70 price tag is simply the video game industry catching up with the economy. Logically, this should be an expected change, however, people's income has not increased enough to justify it. The real problem with this all isn't even the price increase though. I mean, it's just an extra $10 for us, and that's for a select few games. The real problem is companies increasing the prices but somehow lowering the quality. In my eyes, the 2000s and the 2010s were the golden age of gaming. It was a perfect balance of accessibility, quality, and overall interest in the industry. Today still has some great games being released, but everything reeks of a bit more greed. Almost like now you can kind of tell games are meant to make money, not to actually be good. I think the biggest offender of this is the Pokemon franchise. I mean, the company has released yearly content since 2016, and to be honest, the only game I actually enjoyed was Pokemon Let's Go. I think the general consensus of fans is that the last great traditional games of the series were Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, some even saying Black and White 2. The most recent release, Scarlet and Violet, look amazing on paper, but when you can't even run the game properly, what's the point? The most frustrating thing about this whole situation is that these recent games have been selling like crazy. According to Nintendo, it doesn't matter how good a game is as long as people go ahead and buy it. With the Switch being Nintendo's best-selling home console, I'm sure they have a sense that they can do no wrong. Besides Pokemon, it seems like quality control for full-price games have been getting more and more sloppy. I don't think I need to list them all, but I think after many recent releases, people are a lot more hesitant to pre-order games now. I have to be honest though, I've been a bit too harsh with some of my claims. First of all, let's just give 2021 and 2022 somewhat of a pass in terms of lower quality releases for obvious reasons. And to be frank, 2023 has been an outstanding year for gaming. Besides that, making video games is a difficult and expensive process that requires a lot of resources. As a result, the cost of developing video games has increased significantly over the years. In addition to developmental cost, marketing and distribution costs have also increased due to the need of more extensive advertising campaigns and the rise of digital distribution platforms. These factors have made it hard for game developers to make good games while still making money. The focus on free-to-play online games and microtransactions has put many developers in a tough spot. Should we keep making high-quality single-player experiences, or switch to the much more profitable model of free-to-play with in-game purchases? Naturally, most companies have stuck to their original styles of making games, but when you see how much Overwatch 2 was able to make after going free-to-play, I'm sure it's tempting. At least Nintendo has kept microtransactions strictly on their mobile games. Paid DLC is still popular for Switch games, but if I'm being honest, it's usually worth the money. The Breath of the Wild expansion and the Smash Bros DLC added a huge amount of content, and it just feels weird playing without it. A lot of DLC on Switch is actually bundled with Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack. While most of it has pretty much become stale already, I gotta say, Mario Kart 8's new tracks have breathed a new life in that game. Switching from discussing software, you can actually tell that Nintendo had been struggling the past few years when it comes to things like hardware as well. I mean, just take a look at how many bundles and variations we got of the DS and Wii. It's gotten to the point where special edition Switches don't even come with the game they promote. Now perhaps we might get a cool bundle for Black Friday or Christmas, but even that is unlikely. I just remember the days where the DS Lite was $100 and I could play some of the best games ever on that. And not to mention all of the 3DS re-releases and special editions. Now of course I wasn't actually the one buying them, I was just a kid after all and mostly just thought they looked cool. All we've gotten recently for the Switch has been new OLEDs with different color Joy-Cons. I do actually think the recently released Mario Switch looks super cool, I just don't have $350 lying around to spend on it. It does seem pretty clear that Nintendo will be announcing a Switch 2 of some sort next year, so perhaps things will turn around for the better. With the releases of Pikmin 4, Tears of the Kingdom, and Super Mario Wonder, it seems like Nintendo games are at least returning to the high quality standards we expect of them. Not to mention the several remakes being released next year that look amazing with completely new assets. To be honest, I don't mind games being $70 if they're actually amazing games, but when I see the new FIFA, or FC24, being $70 standard edition, I just feel disappointed knowing that these games will drop down to half price within 3 months, and they're just trying to run everybody's pockets. Another big problem people have are ports and remasters being full price or even $70. Take Skyward Sword HD for example. This game is admittedly a pretty good remaster that fixes most of the big issues with the game, however it costs $60. This is an example of a bad price point since the game's assets are the same and the changes are mostly quality of life. Not to mention that, well, you can literally create this game yourself on an emulator with mods for free. I'm not saying that the game didn't take a lot of effort to make, but it just feels like a little much paying the same price for a remaster as a brand new game. You know what though, this game sold well. Millions of people saw Zelda and went, okay, and purchased it for full price. Nintendo knows how many new fans Breath of the Wild brought in, so they were just capitalizing off of the new audience to make some money during a tough time to run a business. Another group of ports that people were pretty mad about was Mario 3D All-Stars. That game was quite literally a bare-bones collection of games that run on par with regular emulators, and it was still $60. Again, this game sold insanely well, making over $500 million for the company. You know, now that I think about it, that was probably the easiest bit of money the company has ever made. While Nintendo does have some missteps every now and then, for the most part they do a good job at handling their full remakes. Pokemon Let's Go and Link's Awakening come to mind as great remakes that you can find for less than $60 at some retailers. Soon after this video releases, we'll be getting the Super Mario RPG remake and next year the Thousand Year Door remake, which both look amazing. They have completely new assets and seemingly new content as well. They are surely going to be $60, which is somewhat annoying. But when you look at it from Nintendo's perspective, it makes sense. Many of the people who see these games are actually hearing about it for the first time, not even knowing they're remakes. Consider that Super Mario RPG came out in the 90s and Thousand Year Door in the early 2000s. I even asked my little sister about it and she literally thought Mario RPG was a brand new game. Aside from Nintendo, another upcoming remake making gaming headlines is Persona 3 Reload. When I saw that it was going to be $70, I kinda laughed since it was just a remake. But after I really looked into it, it's basically a whole new game with on par or better quality than even the newest version of Persona 5. As someone who hasn't even played Persona 3 yet, this is a great entry point for me, although I may wait for a discounted price. This is one of the rare cases where I would say $70 is probably justified, although I've heard that this game might be missing some bonus content from other versions. I believe after those dark ages in the post-pandemic years, more companies are finally beginning to release and develop great games again. Don't be surprised if late 2024 and 2025 shape up to be some of the best times to be a gamer. As for the prices, we can only do so much as consumers. At the end of the day, nobody is forcing you to buy games, and you can choose to protest these prices if you want. I myself will continue to buy games that actually look high quality, no matter what they cost. Of course, I wish games were more affordable, but sometimes there are just things out of your control. If anything, you can use the increased pricing of games to motivate you to go out there and make some money, because I know I am. If you made it this far in the video, let me tell you a secret. Pressing the like button not only helps my video grow, but also helps the algorithm show you more content like this, so it's a win-win for the both of us. Thank you so much for watching.